Hello there, welcome back to the channel. This is Nerd World Empire. We're looking at the Xindi Primate Dreadnought Cruiser, as it is known mostly in Apocrypha, but it was basically the Xindi Primate vessel, generally speaking. This ship was the vessel type used by one of the 5 species that made up the Xindi, known simply as the Primates. These were the most human looking of the Xindi, and the race to whom Degra, that is main chief engineer and designer of the Death Star, Xindi super weapon planet killer. Before we get started, please like, share, subscribe and comment down below. Tell me what you think about this ship, what you remember of it, and if there's any information that I miss out about this vessel, and if it's one of your favorite Xindi ships. So let's get started on it. This ship, as I said, was used by the Primates. It was a little smaller than the NX class starship. It was a fast, nimble and extremely maneuverable craft. Again, it's unknown, like many Xindi vessels, whether it possessed a conventional warp capability but was able to generate vortexes. It is notable that in apocryphal sources such as Star Trek Online and other such areas, this craft, which we can say is in an alternate timeline in those universes, is capable of conventional warp. It's armed with particle beam weapons, as are standard to all Xindi vessels, but was never demonstrated to utilize torpedoes. These may have been reserved for the more belligerent powers within the Xindi, such as the insectoids and the reptilians. The vessel is likely to have carried shuttles and other support craft, but again was not seen to deploy them. However, again, in certain, let's call them alternate timelines, these craft were seen to use heavy fighters. They were also known in those timelines as Attaleth class heavy dreadnought, but I think that might be a overclassification for the Prime timeline. These ships were nowhere near that heavily armed or powerful, and they were not as belligerently constructed as was pointed out by Degra and others as the vessels built by the insectoids and the reptilians. These were powerful little ships, but they were no match even for an NX class starship. Both the Primates and the Arboreals didn't build and equip their ships for war. They were just really made to defend themselves, relying on the other powers within the Xindi to effect defensive measures when needed. The vessel's unique abilities as a hen are unique to the Xindi. They include the ability to create and utilize the spatial warping technology, simply known as a sort of void travel, which is a fairly interesting form of propulsion utilized by the Xindi. It's not known which of the Xindi races actually developed this form, or if it was actually a gift to them, from the sphere builders. The Xindi likely continued to use it after the spheres were destroyed, and probably well into the future centuries. These vortexes were considerably faster and more efficient than using conventional warp. The Xindi were certainly, by the mid-22nd century, one of the more technologically sophisticated races living in the Alpha Quadrant, certainly more advanced than any of the major powers that would go on to found the Federation and even be an enemy to it. But although these vessels participated in multiple engagements, they were mostly seen to be utilized as a sort of diplomatic craft, only getting involved in armed engagements when the Xindi realized that they had been misled by the sphere builders, and several of these ships would join an armada of craft to try to destroy the very thing that they believed to be the salvation of their race, but was actually going to be their own undoing. By destroying humanity, the Xindi were actually sealing their own fate, and the Primates were amongst the first races to realize this, and they utilized these moderately powerful ships in some numbers to try to destroy the forces of the insectoids, reptilians, and the actual sphere weapon itself. Not much else is really known about these ships. They are defended by shields, they have hull armor, although they are not, strictly speaking, a combat vessel. Unlike, say, Starfleet, I would use as a comparison. Starfleet builds ships mostly to be used in exploratory missions, but they have a secondary function of combat. This ship, I would say, did not have a secondary function of combat. It was merely equipped to defend itself, and there is a bit of a difference. It's like the USS Enterprise NCC 1701 was a cruiser type ship. In other words, it was well armed. It had phasers, torpedoes, it had a power grid dedicated to powering its weapon systems, it had the ability to summon huge amounts of energy for its shields, and had a well-trained, well-drilled crew and often undergo combat exercises. The Primate Xindi race were not as keen on such activities, and as a result their vessels reflected their more passive nature compared to the, say, reptilians, who as a more belligerent race built more aggressively in their starships, with the primates building vessels that were more diplomatic or scientific or even exploratory in nature, were only equipped with weapons to defend themselves, unlike, again, comparing it to the Constitution class, which had offensive capability. And that is this ship, and the end of this video.
I just want to take this moment to thank you for watching that video. If you liked what you saw, please check out my social links in the description box below to Instagram and Twitter and others, and also is down there a link to my Patreon page where you can support this channel and the others as I try to grow this franchise and do this more regularly. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you for watching, and bye bye.